Comic creators, your new crowdfunding launch sidekick is here. The Comic Book Crowdfunding Planner from ComixLaunch is your ultimate step-by-step companion to planning, optimizing, and executing your crowdfunding campaign, helping hardworking creators stay organized, execute with confidence, and maximize success on every launch.
Hey, I'm Tyler James, publisher of Comics Drive and host of the ComixLaunch podcast,
which has been helping comic creators launch successful crowdfunding campaigns for nearly a decade. In that time, I've seen the same struggles come up again and again. Making a great comic, but no idea where to start with crowdfunding it, overwhelm at all the steps to launch, and fear of missing something important, exhaustion during the campaign, and struggling with the emotional roller coaster of launching.
and finishing the campaign and still being unsure what worked, what didn't, and how to get better results the next time. If any of those challenges sound familiar,
you are not alone, and it's not your fault. Crowdfunding a comic requires a completely different skill set than making one. The good news is I have something that can help. To celebrate the 10th anniversary of ComixLaunch, I've distilled years of my own crowdfunding experience and the insights of hundreds of amazing guests I've had on the show into one essential tool. This new comic book crowdfunding planner is really 4 powerful books in one, designed to help during every phase of your launch. First, it's a launch planner, providing a step-by-step roadmap including guided templates and battle-tested ComixLaunch exercises to build a winning campaign. Second, it's an execution checklist, including action items and pro tips for every aspect of your project so you can launch with confidence. Third, it's a daily campaign journal with dedicated pages to track your campaign progress each day of your launch, prioritize your daily promotional activities, and stay in command of your project. And fourth, it's a post-launch debrief with a proven post-mortem process to capture what worked, what didn't, and what you'll improve on so that your next launch is even better. The Comic Book Crowdfunding Planner is perfect for first-time Kickstarter creators who want a clear roadmap from start to funded.
When it comes to running a Kickstarter, I never thought I could do it until I started using Tyler's tools and tips and tricks.
I have raised over $40,000 US. Everything I have launched has been done using the ComixLaunch tools. It's been the backbone of my success as a creator.
Experienced crowdfunders who want to refine and optimize their launch processes and get to that next level of funding success.
I've raised over $30,000 on Kickstarter. I wouldn't have been able to accomplish this without ComixLaunch. Tyler's guides have made it an effortless and stress-free process.
Tailor-made specifically for comic book creators, writers, artists, and publishers looking to streamline their campaigns and optimize their crowdfunding efforts.
The ability to break down the daunting task of running a Kickstarter into small, well-defined, achievable tasks gave me the confidence to finally launch a campaign.
I really needed an instruction manual, and that is exactly what Tyler gave me.
Perfect for anyone who has struggled with crowdfunding overwhelm and could use a physical tool to help focus before, during, and after your launch.
The timing of finding Tyler and his work was perfect for me because I didn't know what I was doing.
What helped me was getting access to all of the tools that Tyler puts together.
6 campaigns raised about almost $27,000, and I can honestly say I wouldn't have had anywhere near the success without ComixLaunch.
The tools included in Tyler James' planner were essential to getting the ball rolling for me.
Everything I know about running Kickstarters I learned from ComixLaunch.
Finally, it's for all the thousands of ComixLaunch listeners who have been asking for a resource like this for nearly a decade. For rewards, the new planner is available in a number of formats. A beautiful physical planner with a durable faux leather cover, digital PDF version with ready-to-print pages, and discounted multi-pack bundles for creators and publishers with many project launches on the horizon. All backers will be thanked by name on the ComixLaunch podcast, and there's limited show sponsorship opportunities available. I'm also opening my schedule for a few one-on-one crowdfunding coaching and mentorship opportunities, and you can also get access to some of the ComixLaunch Pro courses during this campaign.
let's make your next launch the best one ever.
Back the Comic Book Crowdfunding Planner today, and I can't wait to see what you launch next.
Prepare to launch in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Hello, everybody. Tyler James here. And on this special live stream, I've got a good one queued up and ready to roll with you all today. We have an awesome panel of guests, and I'm excited to dive into things with them. Sitting in the backstage with me, about to bring on our Sam Kusek, who is the senior outreach lead at Comics. We also have my pal, Rob Multari of Lone Wolf Comics. We have Allan Liska of Green Archer Comics, and we have Christian Douglas of Unpopular Tales. And I'm excited to have this panel on here. Our three comic creator crowdfunders have books in pre-launch, and we'll give them an opportunity to share some of that. But because we have Sam, who is the comics lead over at Kickstarter here, I really wanted to spend the bulk of this conversation just having a real good in-depth conversation about the state of comics and crowdfunding and what's working, what maybe not working, changes coming to Kickstarter, and the whole nine there. So welcome everyone. But Sam, would love to just start with you and give you an open floor if you wanted to share any initiatives or just things for people that have jumped on early. What's one thing you want comic book creators to know about that you're working on Kickstarter right now?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tyler. It's always fun to be a part of these conversations. I mean, the biggest thing for us is, as you all have probably seen in the past couple of weeks, is that we've rolled out our pledge manager. So very excited, having a lot of conversations with folks about adopting that, trying that out, and getting feedback. In the initial release rate, we've framed it as an open beta, so there's still things we're working on, still things that we're making changes to and feature enhancements that we're going to roll out. But as you can imagine, this is really a big feature release for us, right? It's something that people have been asking about for a while. We want to make sure that the entire crowdfunding process is all under one umbrella. So reaching out to your audience, encouraging the people who are on this call, I'd love for you all to try it where appropriate, right? You can activate it while the campaign is live. You can start building out your shipping costs, different surveys for different reward offerings, getting into capturing taxes, customs, all kinds of things like that. So that's been really my focus for the past month or so, is just that pledge manager. And anyone who's interested in learning more, happy to connect you directly either with myself or connect you directly with people at Kickstarter so we can talk about some of the more nuanced aspects of your campaign.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great place to start, Sam. And you know, I'm actually going to be testing it out and giving my first spin on the pledge manager with this ComixLaunch planner project that I'm doing. I'm gonna jump to our panel here to get some feedback or just to have a discussion a little bit about the decision to use that pledge manager or not. But before I do, I also wanted to just say to any of the folks that are here that are watching live, we already have a bunch live in the stream. I know we'll have more joining as we go on, and we'll have folks in the replay. If you have specific questions or things that you want to hear this panel discuss, please leave them in the comments. I do have a number of topics I want to get to, but I'm going to try my best to make this interactive and make this fun for everyone tuning in. So shout out to everybody that's here already, and we'll try to make this valuable for you. But I guess I'll start with Rob Multari, because Rob, I know you are a veteran Kickstarter project. You've got Snowpaw coming up, and you also have experience working with a number of different pledge managers, as well as the standard Kickstarter survey. What are your current thoughts on the pledge manager, and what do you maybe need to see to make the decision to use that product?
Yeah, I mean, you know, right now I've been using BackerKit for the pledge manager. You know, I like the back end as far as like doing the add-ons. I feel like the process of putting them together and working with them there, it has been a little bit easier than Kickstarter's at this moment. I'm hoping that would change soon or in the near future. And also from what I've kind of read and saw and talked about with other creators, as far as with Kickstarter's pledge manager, right now, it's my understanding that you're not able to batch multiple backers into a kind of an export to be able to kind of ship them or put them into a an export to be able to print multiple shipping labels at once. Right now, you kind of have to do that individually per backer, if I'm not mistaken. That's a big thing for me because streamlining the process. It's already, when I have 400 to 600 or more backers, that's a lot of backers to do individually, especially when let's say like I have 200 doing my base physical tier for my standard edition. Being able to export, those who don't have add-ons are just basically there for that single issue. It's easy to export all of them all at once and then print all 200 labels, because it's the same weight, same, shipping, same, everything, rather than to just kind of, do that individually. It saves, some of the larger crowdfunders some time. And believe me, I would love to have everything all in-house, everything through Kickstarter if I could. Again, a lot of it's, for me, it's streamlining to make, the process easier. If I were able to merge the two into one giant crowdfunding platform, I would definitely love to do that.
Yeah. Christian, are you planning on using the Pledge Manager with the next launch, or are you
I'm still like a little bit on the fence because I want to see all the details, because I kind of like Rob, I also use BakerKit, and sometimes I just don't even use like a let run, because normally what I do is I normally have them on my email list already. So if they want like add-ons, because as we have the late pledge feature, which is fantastic, the guy who came out with that, perfect, because that again, hey, in case you want something else before we close, because normally what we do is like after the campaign, we have like a month of like pre-sales. So anybody who really didn't went to, because it happens, this happens a lot of, oh, I forgot, oh, I was on holidays, oh, blah, 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 something happened. And, I want that t-shirt, or I want the stickers, or I want whatever. So I normally we give them like a month afterwards. And normally we put that on house with our email directly with the email list, or even we'll even do like updates directly to the campaign. But I will definitely give it a try for sure.
Yeah.
To see how it goes. And there's something now I have Sam here. There's something I already talked to Tyler back in the day when we have the last time we spoke. And this is something that, and I really hope that Kickstarter will like put it something like Rob was saying, like put integrated also inside. It's a whole community thing, especially for like reaching backers or reaching people within the platform. Because I don't know about the rest of you guys here, but I don't really like social media that much, especially the people who run it. It's like, yeesh. So I would prefer to like give my advertising or marketing money directly to Kickstarter than give it to, Zuckerberg or whoever. Insert your name here, so just name more. So again, that's like an idea out there, and I would, because I think it's a lot of people are doing it. I saw like, for example, the heavy metal campaign, they're doing like a special community platform they're using called Circle. Never heard of it. I just like find out a couple of days ago. So I think that's like the way going forward, like to have your own communities of like-minded and especially based on your niche, or based on the people who have bought from you before, or like related to that. So more than the mainstream, let's call it the mainstream social media, the big guys, the big 4, big 5, depending on what you use,
Yeah, Christian, I mean, that, talking about ways for Kickstarter to help creators connect with their fans. I mean, that's kind of the core of their mission. And so I do want to get Sam's take on some of that and some ideas there. I did want to give Allan just a chance to share his thoughts on the Pledge Manager so far, and then we'll have Sam just share some of his feedback on what you all have said about that new initiative.
Yeah, so we're taking advantage of it for this one. We've never used BackerKit before. We've always gone directly through Kickstarter for everything. But figure we'll give it a try. Plus, I'm hoping the more that I buy into the Kickstarter ecosystem, the more likely I am to get a project I love tag. I'm willing to suck up to whoever I need to in order to get that added to my project.
Yeah, that's definitely something. I'm curious, your reaction to some of these things. I'm sure some of this is stuff that you've heard before, Sam. But what's your
Yeah.
reaction?
No, I mean, it's my reaction is generally positive. Like, this is the open conversation that we want to have with our creators, right? Is we want you to be either using the platform, in Allan's case, giving us feedback about your experience, or with regards to Christian or Rob, letting us know about what features are important to you. Like I said at the beginning, we're very much still in that period of development and rolling new things out. So getting that feedback is helpful for us. The community thing is, it's related to the pledge manager. It is a little bit of a different beast in terms of how we integrate that into the site, but I know that's something that people have been interested in for a while as well. So this is all, as far as I'm concerned, this is all good, and luckily it's no major surprises, right? I think it's something that we're aware of and that we're actively working on as well, but we're just over that initial hump right now. So I would say stay tuned and keep your eyes peeled to the Kickstarter channels for more info.
Yeah, cool. And this one came through from the folks at Afterlight Comics. They said, looking forward to trying out the Pledge Manager. Are add-ons available in the Pledge Manager?
Yes, add-ons should be available. I will turn people to, just because I want to make sure that people have resources that we have made available. We do have Help Center articles about how people can use the Pledge Manager. So I'm going to put some links in the chat here. I would say, I don't want to spend all of our time just going through and answering any of those specific questions if they're there in the Help Center articles. So I'd say check those out, dive into what's available. And then, as Christian asked, I provided my email in the private chat as well. Feel free to hit me up with any questions. I can put you in touch either with Answer Things myself, or I can put you in touch with some of the product folks at our Pledge Manager team if it feels like it's bigger than a bread box, right?
Yeah, sounds good. And I told the people that are backing the my current Kickstarter that because I'm using the Pledge Manager for that for the first time, you can definitely expect a walkthrough and a sort of my experience with it in a podcast episode in the near future. So I'm looking forward to diving in. And I've sort of shared on the podcast that, as a new product, competing with the expectations that a lot of people might have with BackerKit is probably going to be the toughest thing. That BackerKit's product is, has 10 years of equity built into it. They've heard every question. They've, had to respond to every potential use case, and that there's creators like Rob or myself that have all of this time spent building out add-ons and things in there that is, and shipping tables and everything, where copying it over and redoing that work from start, it's a smaller climb. But for the creators that was like, I want those features, but I don't know that it's going to be worth it to spend 2% of my campaign raise to test out a platform that also is a little bit scary. I think, a lot of pulling those creators in is going to be where this is going to shine right away. And then, as it matures, you'll have the opportunity to win over folks like Christian and Rob and myself, I think. So I want to, there's a lot of ways we could go with this conversations, and I'm sure you guys have questions for Sam, and I'm going to try to open it up. But I thought, because I saw this thing sort of taking on a little bit of fire over the past couple of days and people sharing it on Facebook, there was a post that Jimmy Palmiotti posted over on LinkedIn that I want to just bring up and then have a discussion about. And so I'm going to read the post and then we'll dive in. But this is Jimmy Palmiotti. He's a longtime industry vet, well respected in both the direct market and major publishing world, big two publishing world, but also has had a lot of success with paper films, his Kickstarter publishing ventures, etc. But he posted this a couple days ago. He said, my opinion on crowdfunding and why it's taking a hit right now. The decline in Kickstarter's effectiveness for small creators is sadly rooted in several interconnected factors. And, whenever I hear somebody say put out anything and make an argument, looking at the premise is always where I tend to want to start first and foremost. But let's just look at the major things that Jimmy's calling out here. He says, first and foremost is the erosion of trust. When creators fail to fulfill their promises, delivering late products, mishandling communication, or neglecting backers, it damages the credibility of crowdfunding as a whole. Even creators with impeccable track records like myself suffer the fallout as skepticism grows among potential supporters. I cannot say this enough. Customer interaction and on-time delivery is a must. I hate that I have to go on social media each time explaining that I have done 25 campaigns and never deliver a book's late. They don't care. Once burned, they do not come back. The influx of major corporations into Kickstarter has further complicated the landscape. Originally a platform designed to empower independent creators, it's increasingly become another commercial venture to saturate for companies with substantial financial resources. Their frequent campaigns flood the marketplace, diminishing visibility for smaller projects. And worse, when these corporations fail to meet expectations, delivering late or offering poor engagement, the negative perception of crowdfunding deepens. I see this happening all the time these days. They get the money and sit back and start another campaign the next week. Economic pressures compounding the issue, rising costs across every aspect of production, printing, shipping, and even essential things like comic bags and boards strain both creators and backers alike. Disposable income shrinking, harder for fans to support projects at the level they once did. And dominant publishers continue to saturate the industry with excessive variant covers, aggressive expansion, mass-produced content. And then the last thing he said, he also made a point that within major companies, those creators are also seeing decreasing wages or wage stagnation. And finally, this convergence of factors presents significant challenges, and I think we are seeing this happen in the last few months big time, but I would love to hear what you guys think above and beyond what you've observed that may add to this list. So that was Jimmy. And so for the sake of this conversation, I want to start with Sam, and then we'll also get the perspectives of the other creators here. But I want to start with the premise itself. Does the data suggest that Kickstarter's effectiveness for small comic creators has actually declined, or is this a fear and a feeling that perhaps isn't borne by the data? And Sam, I know I threw this at you, so I don't necessarily expect you to come in here with all of the stats to prove or disprove this assertion. But what's your thoughts and your take on Jimmy's premise first, and then I want to we'll dive into some of the individual issues that he raised.
Yeah, so generally, I think outside of data, because I haven't had time to pull the numbers and look at this, I have been hearing from folks that, you know, people are struggling to get some newer backers coming in, which I think is, as Jimmy indicated, kind of a mix of a lot of different things. I always point to economic pressures and really uncertainty being a big part of it. I think people, I know personally, I'm being more conservative with my money and making just more, I think, strategic purchases over time, which is unfortunate, right? It's unfortunate for those smaller creators, but I do think that is a contributing factor. I will say, you know, last year, Tyler, I think we talked about this in the interview that we did see an increase in launches and successes, 5.25 increase both in launches and successes throughout the year. So there is still growth happening throughout the platform, and I think more people, you know, to Jimmy's point about the major companies, it is a double-edged sword, right? It does take away from smaller creators. I will say it also brings a lot of first-time backers to the platform who we are working on efforts to make sure that they stick around and find their next favorite comic through the platform. So it's an influx of both people are coming maybe for Transformers or G.I. Joe, and a lot of them are still sticking around to find new campaigns. So it's complicated right now, you know. I think it's a really complicated time, but I would say things are still stable. I don't think there's as rapid a decline as Jimmy is indicating, but it's definitely, there's a lot of challenges at the moment.
Yeah. Rob, thoughts? Is this feelings, or do you think there's some there?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, you know, a lot of us have personal feelings in this and see like how our campaigns have kind of like gone over time. You know, I think there is something to the economics to it, where as Sam also said, people are being more conscious about what they're spending their money on. Comic books are a frivolity, whereas food is a necessity, gas is a necessity. So and I've seen this over time too. Like I've gotten within the last couple of years, I've seen more and more backers who regularly would go for the higher end variants, go down to a regular standard edition cover, or even to the digital. Like my digital has grown as high as like my standard cover. So people want to read. My current backers, who are my wolf pack as I refer to them, they come strong every time. They keep me going. But also, like I said, I've noticed that a lot of them have shifted in what they've been, I know what they were getting, and I can see where they're going now. So I have seen that. And then, I kind of agree with the whole, it's harder to bring in newer backers. Not even for like established, like I have 2 serialized comic book series that I put on here, and with Kickstarter, and it just like I said, like you can see the numbers of new backers kind of like dropping each campaign, and it's not necessarily obviously because the story is bad, because people who are backing before are coming back. So like I said, I think it's economy. I think it's just different factors. I agree to some extent that maybe other campaigns that have burned people might keep those people away, but like I said, my backers who regularly come back trust me, they know me. I do updates all the time. So I think if you have an audience who trusts you, you'll be fine.
So I'm seeing this just in the chat. Amanda Rachel said Kickstarter isn't shoppable for the casual backer anymore. And I'm curious, like Christian, maybe like where do you stand on that? Do you find that it's harder? Do you feel like it's harder now to get backers, or that the effectiveness has declined? And at the same time, there's also for me, I'm wondering, like, what are we talking about between, like, what times are we talking about when we say it's harder then? I want to know when the golden age of small creators crushing it on Kickstarter was such that we are no longer in it, because I can also make an argument that over the past 3 to 5 years, the Kickstarter's rolled out so many different tools and ways that get us potentially more eyeballs, and the platform itself is bigger, that it's a pie, like the pie has grown. But I'm curious where you stand on that.
I'm kind of like, I go with Rob also, like we said. I think it's a mixed bag of things. First, things I've seen from my own campaigns, and things I've seen from a lot of colleagues, a lot of friends of mine who have run campaigns, or even people have hired me for consulting, stuff like that. There's things like, I'm gonna get a little bit technical here, like the CPC or the CPRs, or like actual cost of client acquisition has grown across the board, not only about comics on Kickstarter, but about anything. We have a couple of friends who help us with marketing from time to time, especially when we have new campaigns, and they tell us that, hey, it's getting more and more complicated to get eyeballs and to get people to join in and to buy whatever. And I don't think it's so much it's an issue with Kickstarter or who is on Kickstarter or Kickstarter or all the crowdfunding platform. It's more like a whole political, social, economical situation out there. So there's a lot of, as Rob was saying, we don't sell food, so we don't sell something that is completely essential to live. So, but it's true that there is something, for example, that you were saying before, the thing, when was the golden era of Kickstarter? For me, before the pandemic, we used to sell a lot more. It was easier. Let's call it quote unquote easier. We could hit 10, 15K a lot easier than now, with less resources, with less marketing, with less campaigning. And now is to get more or less the same result, the input is a lot bigger. And talking about directly here like a business. So in order to get the same output that we need, the input needs to be a lot bigger, and we need to be more professional. That's a combination of several things. It's not only the big guys coming in, That can be one. It's not only its economical situation. That for me is the big one, more than the who is in the platform, who is on the platform. And also another thing we haven't taken into account, we have gotten better with years. So if you see my first campaign 12 years ago, has nothing to do with what we do now, like zero. So of course, the competition, even within independent comic, has grown exponentially, incredibly high with the times, and that's normal. That's progression, As
Yeah.
better, as more than the more resources you have, the bigger team you have, the more things you can put in, like in the video or in the pledges and all that. So I think it's a whole combination of things. But it's true that, as I mentioned before, not only on crowdfunding, but all business general, the acquisition cost is becoming higher, sadly. Well, so yeah, because that's the situation. It's not what I would like to be, it's what I see it on across the board, not only on our business. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely something.
I think that's a good comment, just to be aware that lots of platforms are seeing changing behaviors. I think the pandemic was one of those things where there was a lot of fear in there, but everyone with online businesses saw those online businesses get surges of traffic, especially when most other options for in-person sales and things like that went away or were significantly paused for a significant amount of time. And so it was a bit of a boom time for a lot of places. So I can buy the notion that, for projects that were really crushing it, that they may have been turbocharged a little bit during the pandemic or in the fallout of the pandemic, and now we're back towards more reality potentially. I'd be curious, as a project for the data folks over at Kickstarter, Sam, just again to challenge that premise and to see, like, what's the success rate for first-time Kickstarter creators, and has that significantly changed, positive, negative, or not at all, over the past several years? Comics is kind of a little bit unique on the Kickstarter platform in that we have the most returning backers, or excuse me, the most returning creators, and there's also strong linkage that the best predictor of future success on Kickstarter is past success on Kickstarter. So when you have a lot of veterans and a lot of a track record, the expectations meet. But does that mean that it's more of a struggle for new first-time creators or less established creators, or is it just is it a better platform overall? So again, I'd love to have some numbers to match the feelings there. But regardless of that, I'd be curious, and maybe we'll start with Allan and then go back to Sam. Like, of those factors that Jimmy raised, which of these factors do you sort of see as the biggest risk to comic creator crowdfunders? And is there anything that Kickstarter can or is doing to mitigate it? And so Jimmy mentioned erosion of trust from failed delivery, influx of major corporations and publishers, economic pressures and rising costs, or just overall Kickstarter market saturation, and maybe specifically comic book market saturation. But Allan, which of those keeps you up at night?
So actually, we bought a lot of our first time backers with us when we launched our first campaign in 2023. So we haven't had that problem of other creators not delivering affecting us. At least I don't think so. And then as far as influx of major corporations and publishers, I get that it does draw attention away, but if it brings more people to the platform and Kickstarter can figure out how to monetize it, I don't have a problem with that. I think the two things that I'm more worried about are economic pressures and rising costs. I mean, I know, especially with the way shipping is overseas, we've lost a few of our overseas backers, or they've switched over to digital because it's just prohibitively expensive to try and ship anything to them now. And then there's uncertainty around tariffs. And I know comic books technically aren't part of the tariff situation, but I think there is a lot of concern about that. I do think that market saturation's a concern, and I'll add one more to that. I think that there's a lot of NSFW slop in the comics category now, and I think that does kind of detract between real projects and not real projects. And not all NSFW comics are. I wouldn't consider them slop. There's some really, really good ones. Like I think Bad Bug does a great job, and so on. But there's stuff that's just effectively, just cover pinups and stuff like that, and not real comic books. And I do think that takes away from people trying to find real projects. So, and this goes back to what Amanda was saying. I think that hurts the discoverability a little bit when you have to go through all of these, pinup mills to get to actual comics.
Yeah, good point, and I can add sort of that sort of to this list here. Which of these issues is Kickstarter internally most concerned about, or feeling like they can at least address, Sam?
So I'll start with market saturation and getting to Amanda's point about curation. Two things that I have done in the past couple of months that I think are helping with discoverability and really a focus on comic discoverability and talking directly to the audiences, moving away more from pointed social media posts and having a dedicated comics newsletter that goes out to backers of comics projects. So every month on the last Friday of every month, I produce a newsletter that goes out that highlights 6 comics projects that I choose. It has a spotlight from a creator or an industry person who's talking about a campaign that they really like, and then my musings on news and information about where I'll be as I attend a lot of conventions as part of this role. So that's one way that we're trying to break through that market saturation, is having outside of the PWL and new and trending newsletters that go out on a weekly basis, having more direct communication that's specifically focused on comics. And I've seen a lot of success on those, frankly, just looking at the numbers. I can, at a campaign level, look at the referral code, and on some placements in there, I'll see, 14, 15 backings from a posting on there for a particular project, which, depending on the size of the project, can really move the needle. So that has been really helpful. Allan, to your point about not safe for work newsletters, that's been an interesting challenge since I've come onto the role. We also have now a not safe for work newsletter. So there is a way that content is highlighted and sent directly to those people. We are definitely focusing on the content that is more, I would say, narrative driven, more of your traditional comic that has, adult content or sexy content in it, as opposed to some of those pinups, because to your point, like, that is ultimately a comic, right? I'm reading, for example, I'm reading Omaha the Cat Dancer right now, which is effectively this like big grand soap opera that has sex scenes in it between the characters, and that's the kind of content that I want to be able to focus on and highlight, because I do think there's some really great content out there. So we are trying to give that more of a dedicated space for the people who want to find it and highlight some of those good ones there. So that's some of the effort that we are putting on for market saturation, and I would say that's probably our biggest. That and economic pressures are our biggest concerns at the moment from that list.
Yeah. Clay Adams, just speaking to that point, said, a family member who has only backed my campaigns doesn't get my project recommended to her when she logs on to Kickstarter, and as she put it, I only see boobs. So that I think that is especially the concern for creators that don't do that kind of stuff. Just the balance of not wanting to provide a bad experience for people that they're driving to the platform because of what else is on the shelf, essentially, or their stuff their content being too closely associated with other stuff that is wildly different. But man, it is a tough challenge, because one man's slop is another man's treasure, right? So it's tough for Kickstarter, I'm sure, to decide where to draw lines, or if they're even in the lines drawing business.
So,
and Sam, I just want to say real quick, as a backer, personally, I've backed over 500 projects myself. I love your newsletter. I find it really, really helpful, and I do
hey, thanks
find
so
good
much.
things there. So I do, as a backer, really appreciate you doing that, and I hope it's getting more attention from people.
I really appreciate that. I just want to say too, Tyler, on the not safe for work recommendations point. I have made a recommendation to do some filtering. I can't say specifically about a timeline of when that would roll out, but I'm hoping in the future that we'll be able to allow people on an account level to filter out not safe for work content if they want to see it, if they don't want to see it. That's a recommendation that I've made. I can't make any specific promises, but I have heard that feedback from people that because you sign up for Kickstarter, it doesn't necessarily mean you want to see that not safe for work content. Everybody has a different set of values. You have to be 13 to sign up for Kickstarter. Some of that stuff is 18 plus, so we definitely don't want to, get stuff in the hands or in the eyeballs of somebody who's not ready or willing for that kind of content. So just want to say, I do hear that, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to make changes at a later date.
Yeah, and just so that we don't bury the lead here, how does one go to get on that specific comics newsletter that you are putting out, Sam?
I've got, and I'll send this over to you, Tyler, if you want to share it. We've got a sign up page here. It's -newsletters-comics after Kickstarter.com. Please sign up. As Allan said, I hope, as Allan indicated, that it is helpful for people. It gives you some insight, and it introduces, more importantly, introduces you to some new people in the comics space, because I think there's a lot of really great distinctive voices, both from a Kickstarter and just like a comics publishing in general side of things. I try and talk about, been talking about a lot about the Diamond News, everything that's happening there, been talking about retailer tiers and some better education around that. So there's there's just a lot of conversation happening, and I want to make sure that Kickstarter is a nice cultural point, right? I don't want us to just be this monolith that feels like we're not paying attention to the rest of what's going on.
Yeah. Follow the Kaiser said it would be nice to know that there was a push to get eyes on campaigns that are not funded yet. There are some really great projects out there that are just not getting eyes on the project. And so thoughts on that. And then also from Patrick Lugo said, how would one go about getting their project featured on Sam's newsletter?
Hey, Patrick. That is the process for my selecting projects to get newsletters is really entirely up to me. I'm able to post or select projects. And I would say just give me a heads up about your project. I always tell people, and I think I communicated this on our episode, Tyler, I really need to know about projects 4 to 6 weeks in advance of launch so I can have a better understanding about where they're going to be running. And it really just kind of depends on how they run in the timeline of when the newsletter is going out, right? I try and select things that are going to have at minimum a week runtime out from when the newsletter goes out. I don't want to pick something that's going to end the next day or the next 2 days, because there's a chance that, especially with it going out on Fridays, there's a good chance that we just lose visibility over the weekend and people don't see it till Monday, right? So the more advance notice you can give me, the better opportunity you're going to have to get into a newsletter.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I put out a call to some of the folks that were backing the current project that I'm launching for a comic book crowdfunding planner, and I put the call out to some folks there, and so we got a few that came in for Sam and the group. So there's a question. Austin Light said, "Is it better to have a large projection goal to hit, or set the minimum goal and see how far it goes? I would think if it funds faster, it will accelerate more funding, but if people are moved by their project, they may pledge more to hit the larger goal." I want to start actually with Rob. Rob, you're somebody that has had the gamut of crowdfunding experiences. You've had projects that fund in a very short time, day one funding. You've had projects that you had, your initial project first ever project failed to fund, but that you didn't let that stop you? You've also had projects that's like down to the wire and whew, sweating bullets. What's your approach and thoughts about this? And does it vary from project to project in terms of your projection, your project goal?
Yeah, I think, for starting out, like, I've always been the advocate of set your goal to what you need to produce it. Because if you don't fund for the costs of printing the book, paying the art, basically, if you don't have the money yourself, which, most often I pay for the art, then come in for the printing and, everything else. But if that's not cheap. So like a bare minimum, $5,000 for a single 24 issue comic is generally what most people need, unless they are the artist and the writer and the letter, basically do everything themselves. But if you're a writer like me, who's paying for the art, paying for the printing, paying for basically everything, you have to look at your budget. And for me, it's always been what I want to set. So like my first failed campaign, I was going to kickstart my series by going 3 issues deep, and I went for a $20,000 goal. Obviously, that was very naive of me without having an audience doing it before. So the next time I came back, I had already self-published issues 1 and 2 on my own with my own money. Finally, I couldn't really do that for issue 3. So I came back just for issue 3, set my funding goal at $5,000 is what I needed, and I overfunded. So, just being able to have that kind of like track record, having an audience to get me there, if I would have done it at like $1,000 as my goal and just ended it there, I would have been pretty screwed because I didn't have the extra money to put that out then. Same with like, we were talking about different projects. So like as it got to be, I was putting my trades out. So that minimum cost is $10,000 for me, because a trade, especially, when I put out a trade, I usually do something a little more specialty with die cut and it's a thicker book, and it's trying to put out enough units to make it worthwhile. That's not a cheap endeavor. So, raising that bar up to, that higher amount, that's something there. And then when I'm putting out my plushies, that's a whole nother bag, like that's $5,000 right there, to produce, something like this and have enough for, selling later. And, so, and again, as we were talking about, comics tend to go easier than like a kid's book, especially if it's a more of an adult theme or, more general audience theme than a kid's book or a plushie or whatever. So you kind of have to gauge that and figure out, what's your budget, what is, is the market value, and what are people, going after, so you kind of have to know what you're doing. And for me, I would rather not fund than have to, because I'm already got skin in the game. I'm already putting my own money in it. So if I don't fund, then that means that's less I have to put in later and go further in the hole.
Yeah. Allan, your thoughts on goal setting?
I'm a coward, so by default, I set the bare minimum funding goal because I don't want to have to sweat up until the last day as to whether or not I'm going to get funding. But same thing. I mean, we've been very fortunate that our first campaign was a huge success, and that allowed us to fund the next set of comics. And so we've been funding ahead of time. Basically, each previous campaign basically funds the next comic that we do, and we're able to fully produce the comic before we jump into Kickstarter. So I set the absolute minimal goal to cover the printing costs, because I've already paid for the art, and hope that we overperform. In addition, because there is this concern of whether it's real or imagined, as you pointed out, Tyler, about, is it saturated? Is Kickstarter starting to struggle a little bit, which is not something we've experienced, but I know other people have. For first-time funders especially, is goal is $10,000 and you haven't done a Kickstarter before, and you can't bring a large following with you, to hard to hit that campaign. No matter how good your art is, no matter how talented you are, it is really hard to hit a $10,000 goal for first-time funders. But I see a lot of that. I see that mistake happen a lot with a lot of first-time creators.
Yeah. So I want to jump to Sam, but I'm going to do it, and you can comment on the goal decision, but also I want to do it in the context of this question that came through from Paul Eza, super backer, who asked, what factors into the algorithm for Kickstarter to boost their promotion of a project? Is it pre-launch followers, first day backers, neither, something else? Is it percentage funded? Is it total dollar amount? And he says, is it a this is a mystery that can help newer creators become more successful. This is a lot of like the Kickstarter algorithm talk, if there's some way I can game this or a secret to it. But what do you want to share in terms of a mindset and strategies for creators as they're thinking about whether it be goal setting or just anything they're doing? What's the right mindset they should take?
Yeah, so I think I've shared that I have a background in project management. So when I think of goal setting, I'm outside of my being a Kickstarter employee and the senior outreach lead for comics, I'm a creator myself. I make tabletop role playing games, and my mindset just from that perspective has always been ask for what I need and give myself a 20% buffer when shit goes bad, because shit always goes bad. Like everybody has had that happen to you in projects, right? So I would say, prepare for something to go wrong. I've said that on this podcast. I say it pretty much on every podcast that I'm on. So whatever your goal is, prepare. In terms of the algorithm, I will say the algorithm, as big and sort of scary and technical of a word as it is, there are aspects of the algorithm that are a mystery to me and are a mystery to some Kickstarter employees and outreach employees as well. So I can't speak specifically to here are all the things that you need to hit to be able to be picked up by that. That being said, what I can tell you is that pre-launch followers are definitely something that we encourage and pay attention to. That helps us from our just overall promotion and general promotion. We do promote primarily live campaigns, I will say, but for pre-launch followers, I will definitely say that is something that is just helpful to continue to grow and focus on, because we see a 30% conversion of pre-launch followers to backers, right? So if you have 100 people, you're going to get 30 people coming in the door in the first couple of days to back, and that can be a really strong indicator of success. We do, the system has things built into it. When something is almost funded, a tag will come up programmatically, and you can see that in the search, right? So we are helping people get over the line there. If something is coming to the end, we have those programmatic checks that'll say, those emails that will go out, those 48-hour emails, those 72-hour emails will go out and remind people. But what I look for in terms of the stuff that I personally choose to promote is a solid amount of preview pages. I recommend like 3 to 6 preview pages, so you're giving enough of an appetizer without giving the whole story away. And then a good variety of rewards, so sort of a digital option, your base tier, and some higher tier options. I love seeing things like original art if people put that in there, or a way for people to be drawn into the comic. I think that is really fun. Tyler, like you mentioned, having one-on-one sessions available if people are interested and willing to do that. I think that kind of community building, and to your point, helping those first-time creators feel more confident and understand from the masters at work, right, how they can do it themselves, because that's what really Kickstarter is all about. We never want to create a gatekeeping community where you guys are the only ones who are having success. We want to welcome new people, and we want to help people build new businesses out. So that's kind of that's a lot of different information for the questions that were asked.
Yeah, absolutely. But good stuff to know. And this is kind of things that I think thinking, but can you say definitively, because I still do hear people is like, well, if I can just get my project to show 5,000% funded, even though I'm asking for $5 or something like that, then that's going to automatically shoot me to the top of the Kickstarter page. You wouldn't recommend people, that need 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 5,000, but set a $5 goal simply because it's gonna game Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing: is that is not necessarily. I do think there's a perception about how the website works with regards to that, right? Like there are different search functionalities. If you look at if you go to the comics category, everything that's mixed in is shown is not the highest funded at the top. You can look at that and you can see that, but that's not automatically how things are populated. It's more random. It's a little more esoteric. You can look at newer things. That's generally how I look at stuff. Is I'll go through what's launched in the past couple of weeks or past week. And I'll also say too, because this has come up, just because you're successful doesn't necessarily mean you're going to automatically be a featured project on the homepage. That's something that we plan out. That's something that's very deliberate on our end to make sure that we have a wide variety of categories that are shown to people. And the carousels that show up are user-based and programmatically set by the algorithm, right? So it's based on your backing history, your behavior, the things that you look at there. Charlie makes a great point. Hi, Charlie. About the backer analytics. I would say even if you're a first-time creator and you have, I would encourage first-time creators before they come to Kickstarter, if you have the ability to put something out on like I'm just using platforms off the top of my head that I use, but a drive-through RPG or an itch.io or even a Squarespace. I use Squarespace for my first crowdfunding campaign, and I was able to pull region data down from that, and that allowed me to set my shipping rates based on where I knew my audience was coming from, so I could speak directly to them and make sure that they felt prepared to make a purchase, right? It definitely, I would say, try and take time to build up an audience or build up a practice outside of Kickstarter before you come to Kickstarter, because that's going to be a really great way for you to get information. Backer analytics is a great point. It's just a difficult thing to do sometimes, I think, when you're the first time creator at Kickstarter. So anything you can do to have more information about the people who want your content, the better prepared you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also will say, like, the backer analytics is great. Kickstarter's, finally rolling out and then integrating like pixels and things like that has definitely really helped elevate giving more transparency to the paid promotion side of things. This one, we got one more question from the group there, and I want to start with Kristen, but we'll hopefully get one sort of tip for the question from Crawford Wheeler II says, what are good ways to build an audience for someone just starting out? So like, what's one tip, like just one quick tip for someone never launched a Kickstarter project, starting from square one, and wasn't born into celebrity. They're just starting out. What's one tip that you would give them to get this thing rolling? Maybe start with Christian.
Yeah, I will give up something. Well, in the market, it's called a magnet. It's a freebie, a good one, the best one you can, and try not to make it too big. You're not gonna give away a trade bag or something like that, but like a dash can, 6 pages, 10 pages, or 8 pages. I will not give it like to start with. I will go little by little, like introducing the characters, introducing the topic, the theme, introducing the scenes, the why, introducing yourself. Because that's very important. At the beginning, this is something that I read a lot of marketing books about this, is that people don't really buy the story or the characters, they buy the creator at the beginning. Is that their journey? So why are they doing this? Who is this guy or who this woman? Why they decide to write about this or to draw about this? Why it's important to them? How they learn to do it? Stuff like that. Answering those questions, and that's kind of like not very complicated or expensive to do. And from there, you start getting some traction. And then when you start with the groups and the mailing lists and the actual, spending money on marketing, you're gonna have to do if you want to be successful. So I know some friend of mine who were so good that they didn't really need that, and God bless to them. But I don't recommend that, especially if you're starting out. And there's also a thing that a friend of mine told me some years ago, and it still rings to my head. Is like at the beginning, you don't really know how good or how bad you are. So you feedback is like essential. It's like air. So you really need to know who resonates with what you create, who is your ideal customer, where, as Sam was saying, where that they're located. Is it easier? Can you go to a convention? Can you go to not a convention? Can you knock on a store that's closed that can organize a signing? Or so it's you need to have a lot of there's a lot of prep. But what I would recommend is like kind of like a journal, like a blog, and use social media. That's kind of like it's free, and to explain that journey. So, hey, who are you? Where you come from? Why you do this? And what is the story about? Who are the characters? And you show later, and that builds. That builds. And with time, when you're ready to like actually have a page or have a thing already done, say, oh, okay, yeah, I sign in. So that will be my advice.
Yeah, good tips there. Allan, you have a advice or just one little tip for someone just at the beginning of the journey?
Yeah, so I'll co-sign a lot of what Christian said. When we did our first book, the Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, the thing that sold it to people was the story, because on the surface, a book about a dude who stops ransomware attacks isn't necessarily good comic material, but when we can talk about how it comes from personal experience and why we're doing this and why this character and so on, that meant a lot. And as we got better at telling the story, we found that we had more backers, and as we moved through issue 1 through 4, that helped a lot. I'll also say, again, networking, but don't just talk about yourself. Interact, build that, build that as somebody who's helpful, because you're going through this process now. There are probably a lot of other people on social media sites or in the comics community that have the same questions that you. Answer those questions, help with your advice, etc. Because if you're seen as just out there just promoting yourself, you're not going to build that level of trust where people are going to want to back you, I think.
Yeah, the old how to win friends and influence people advice of to get people to be interested in you. Well, go take an interest in them first and build from there. Rob, one other tip you want to add to this mix for
aside from listening to the ComixLaunch podcast, that's a big one.
That's a given. That's a given.
Aside from that, I would definitely say make sure you have an email platform set up that you can push people towards to sign up for your email list, and then start going to social media. Blast out your progress. Like right now, you may not have a full issue to give out or an ashcan, but you do have preliminary stuff like character designs. So you can have sketches, line art, colors, and then move on to pages. Same, you have those exact things. So you can be sharing out that stuff to get attention, to build up your socials, and you can also in that put that link to that sign up page for your email lists, and people can be like, hey, I'm planning on, once this is done, I'm going to launch a campaign, and get on the newsletter list, and we can give you some more back information for the people who like the process junkies out there. That's a great way to start building up when you don't have anything really to actually give or sell, or at that point.
Yeah. Anything to add, Sam?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I agree with everything that's been said. I think this is really solid advice for first-time creators. The other thing that I would encourage people to do, which we touched on a little bit, is go to conventions and go to comic shops. Ask for advice and feedback. Give, if you're able to, print ashcans, like Christian said, to give away to creators or people who have done this before, and either ask for a 30-minute sit down or an hour sit down to be like, hey, I have questions. The worst somebody can say is no, or I don't like your stuff, and that is, also helpful feedback to get. But it never hurts to ask for help. What the end result of that, like the ideal end result, in my opinion, is you either find collaborators, people who can help you out, or when you do launch, you have people who are integrated into the system who will be able to vouch for you and give you a boost or a leg up, right? There's a 16-year history of Kickstarter. Comics is a well integrated part of that. And if you're able to get eyes on your project from somebody who knows what they're doing and can say, hey, I really like this, go check that person out, that is going to be really helpful for you as well. I mean, who knows? It's collaboration is a two-way street, right? You could help them with something down the line. They could help you with something down the line. It really just opens the door to more possibilities for you to be able to do more interesting stuff. But just like put yourself out there. It's super easy. I mean, my job is like this. I'm siloed even within Kickstarter, right? I'm a comics guy at a larger tech company. My world is comics, but I have to remind myself and creators that anything that I do ultimately affects the larger health of the site, right? But it is good for me to get out there, work with my team members, and similarly in comics, it's very easy for you to just make comics in your house and be like, this is awesome. Put yourself out there, test your mettle, test your expectations about your own work, and just get to know what's going on in the larger ecosystem. Comics is a large ecosystem. You have to participate in it to be a part of it. You can't make things in a vacuum.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I think some creators, like, they feel like they have to be like nonstop creation, and they can only show up or start delivering when they've got something fully formed and ready to go for their audience. When in reality, I see a lot of creators that have a lot of success building an audience well in advance of their first thing ever launching, because they're thinking about who it is that they want to serve, like who that audience is, and they're curating stuff for that audience. Like they're sharing the top movies that this audience should be paying attention. They're backing other projects on Kickstarter and being known as the person that knows the cool project that's live. And when you do that, and when you're good at curation, that actually will translate some goodwill towards your stuff when you launch as well. If you're known as someone with good tastes and you launch your own book, yeah, people are going to give it a bigger look than if you already recommended 3 books that they loved. Yeah, that's gonna bode well for you and your chances of launching. I wanted to just give the creators that are here hanging out and appreciate anybody that spent the lunch break with us today, like Collector Detector here. But I did want to give Allan, Christian, or Rob open the floor if there's anything that you wanted to ask Sam for a quick hit question or just a quick topic that you'd like a little bit of feedback on.
I think, I know we were talking a little bit about Kickstarter building like a community piece to the platform, but something that I would love to have within the platform would be a way to, kind of similar to like BackerKit launches single email platform where they can take all of the backers and email once, rather than having to go to my updates and do every single past campaign to update, to try and hit the people who may not have come back, or because that just ends up blowing up their mailboxes, and me personally, I've backed almost 1,000 campaigns. When somebody does that for every single campaign, it just goes right in the junk box. I'm not looking at it. And when I go to the platform in the messages, I wish there was a way to click all, mark as read, because when I have to go and do them all one at a time, drives me insane.
Good to know. Thank you.
If since we can ask for whatever we want, what I'd love? I'd love to be able
we have Santa, Kickstarter Santa here with us.
Yeah.
Sam's going to make all our dreams come true.
I've been good this year's Kickstarter Santa. So here's what I'd like. I'd love to be able to badge people who have backed multiple of my campaigns, because we've had, we're now in our 10th campaign, and we've had people who have backed the 9 previous campaigns. I'd love to be able to assign them badges, because I try and do things to give them a chance to feel special. And I love the secret rewards for that. I think that's really amazing. I know in our last campaign, we did that, and we had a bunch of our backers that really appreciated being able to use that, because we only made it available to people who had backed previous campaigns, but I had to reach out to them manually. So I'd love a way to badge them and, give them extra special thanks for backing the campaign.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for the feedback.
As we are like in the Kickstarter Santa phase of the the podcast, this is something we've been working on for years now, and we're very glad to say that we already achieved it. But to have some part of the platform, or of the, I would say the platform, because it's not something I felt only comics. It would be like some kind of like a group, or like an incubator or something like that, to be able to encourage collaboration across countries, especially across continents, because this is something that's a major thing. It was mentioned here before, the thing of the raising costs. One of the most raising costs for anyone who is in comic is the whole shipping thing. It's insane nowadays. Insane. There are some shipping that costs more than the book itself, which is ridiculous. But it's like that. And on top of that, all the thing we have now with the political situation, the tariff and the taxes, and et cetera, et cetera. So to have some kind of like a I don't know, like an European division and like an Asian division, and not just an America's division, but like, because comics are global. For example, the comic that we're gonna launch this Friday, we have people from China, from Japan, from the US, from Europe, from here, from Ireland. So it's like everywhere, and that's what we like to have as a platform that we all know, that most of like people who have worked with it before, or is known, because it's not. Kickstarter doesn't need brand recognition. Everybody knows what it is. Not only in our sector, because I come from theater and cinemas, a lot of things, they know the platform, so the branding is already done. But we have to kind of like the tool, or I don't know exactly how to do it. I will say it will be something like a summit or whatever, something like that we can have like creators from Europe, creators from the US, or from the US, Canada, Mexico, all America, and then creators from Asia, that we can like intensify the synergies, because I think that's how. I don't think it's not in the future. That's like the present. That's how it should be. Like you can have like a global. That's how all these big studios work, especially now with the technology. You can work remotely for a studio in Japan, or for a studio in South Korea, or whatever. As long as you kind of like adequate your sleeping hours to the schedule, you're good. So. So that's the only tricky part, But so I would like to see something like that built in the platform somehow. That would be gangbusters for sure, for everyone, not only for comics, or for every kind of artistic endeavor, or even tech endeavor, or whatever that's created. That to have that way of like hub principle, or group principle, in order to connect people from all over the place. Now with the internet, it's pretty easy, quote unquote, and straightforward. It's just a matter of languages and stuff like that. But that's about it. Because we publish in 4 languages, so we're kind of used to it to do that, and so it will be. I would love to have that in the platform. That will be fantastic.
Well, I know Sam is got a heart out shortly, but we've got the newsletter that we want to make sure that you get on, the comics specific newsletter for creators that Sam is releasing every week. Sam, anything else that you want to leave folks with before you say goodbye?
Just to clarify, it's releasing every month, last Friday of every month.
Sorry.
No worries. I just to get in people's ear, if anybody's going to be at TCAF, I will be at Toronto Comics Arts Festival in a couple of weeks, and then I will be at San Diego Comic Con. Would love to see people there if people want to get some FaceTime. But just generally, I am open. So if people have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email me. I will try to get back to you in a timely fashion, but I want to continue to have conversations with the community, feel like you have a point person that you can reach out to, and we can have conversations about either what the platform can do to help you, if you have any concerns with getting things approved or wanting to get things promoted. I just want you to know that I'm here for you, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate being part of these conversations, and I think it's really valuable for me to just be able to be more in the mix. So thank you, Tyler, for having me on, and thank you to Allan, Christian, and Rob for being part of the conversation.
Yeah,
Pleasure,
I appreciate
man.
you joining us for this, Sam, and have a great rest of the day. I'm going to give these guys a chance to talk about their upcoming projects, and appreciate you, though. And again, Sam was nice enough to give out his Kickstarter email on this broadcast. So if you want to reach out to him about anything that he mentioned here, the email is right there, s.kusek@kickstarter.com. And so I appreciate Sam for sharing that with the group. All right. So, gentlemen, while you're here, I know you all have projects that are in pre-launch. So let's go through them all. We have from Rob Multari, next up, the next in the Snowpaw franchise. What can you tell us about this upcoming Snowpaw 1 through 4 launch, Rob? Unmute, Rob.
Every time, at least once. Yeah, so this is the end of this first story arc for Snowpaw. So basically, this is the finale and of what's happening here. It's not the end of the series, so definitely we plan on doing more after this. But this is her origin story. This is issues 1 through 4 that will basically bring us to the conclusion of this particular storyline. And, it has been building up the last 3 issues. The end of issue 3 had left our heroine on a bit of a cliffhanger with stuff basically about to hit the fan, if you will. And this issue starts off with a bang. And it's just nonstop action until the very end. So it's a great story. It's about a young woman who discovers that she is born a werewolf. She is betrothed to a rich man's son to save her family farm in the 19th century Scotland. During the engagement party, she is noticed by a high-class werewolf who then follows her back to her family farm where the family is attacked by werewolves, triggering her first transformation.
Awesome. Yeah. And do you have a target launch date in mind?
Right now we're kind of aiming for end of June. There's a couple factors that have been kind of holding it off. One, Mog is still working. Mog Park, who's my illustrator, is still working on the pages. I like to have the book ready before launch. Also, I still have to fulfill Nightwolf issue 10, which was my last campaign. And I'm waiting for the books to come in from the printer roughly about the same time. So once those books are in hand, I can start fulfillment on that and then officially be like, hey, we're now live while I'm fulfilling.
Yeah, I hear you. The machine never stops when you've got multiple projects in the hopper. Also, with multiple projects in the hopper is Christian. Christian, your next one coming up is called Punk Droid Volumes 1 and 2. What can you tell us about this one?
So this is award-winning. We were like nominated for the Heroic Awards a couple of years ago, and this is the second part. Cyberpunk anthology. If you like Black Mirror, if you like Love, Death, and Robots, because the whole idea is like, who will result if you put like Love, Death, and Robots aesthetics with the Black Mirror like vibe and Twilight Zone vibe, all that. If you put like in that cocktail, what will come out? And hopefully that's kind of like we're trying to aim. We start this Friday, so we are. This is the panic phase, I would call it, like the last week before you launch. It's the week that you lose sleep, you lose hair. So yeah, you know how it is. So hopefully we'll start this Friday. So yeah, and we're very happy with it. We brought some really cool people from Japan and from China to do some stories. So it's all short stories, all self-conclusive. You need to buy the first volume to understand the second one. But of course, we want to, if you can, both by both. And it's hard copy. It's a beautiful cover made by Raul Lara, by a Spanish artist. And for example, the first cover was made by a guy who worked in the Love Death and Robots. So we have like really heavy hitters there. And hopefully this Friday will come up. So if you like cyberpunk, if you like dystopian futures, you want to disconnect a little bit about the present reality, that is, I don't know what is more dystopian, our reality or the one in the books. It's like that's highly debatable.
Yeah,
but if you
neck
want
and
to
neck right about now. But yours will probably have better, pretty drawings and better writing.
Yeah, exactly, and it's more control,
Awesome. It looks good, Christian, and I hope the Friday launch goes well for you. And then
thank you. You can hit us pondroid.eu. It's easier to remember, so you have to remember the big URL for Kickstarter. So it's pondroid.eu. So that's it. And thank you, Tyler, for bringing Sam. It's been an incredible session, man. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys being on here. It's one-on-one can be fun, but I think it's also nice for the folks at Kickstarter to just like be in these rooms and these chats with creators here. We've had dozens and dozens of creators tuning in live and chiming in, and so that perspective I definitely think helps make it a better ecosystem for all of us. And Allan, you also do have a project running soon. What can you tell us about Buck Rogers versus the Cyberlords?
So parts of Buck Rogers entered the public domain in January of this year, and Buck Rogers has been such a massive influence on every sci-fi creator for the last almost 100 years that we wanted to retell the original story. So this is based on the Philip Nolan novels or short stories that were published, Armageddon 2419 and then The Air Lords of Han. We retold the story with a lot less racism, hopefully no racism, in fact, because it was a product of its time and there was a lot of yellow scare going on. And so what we wanted to do was, again, tell the core of the story, and reintroduce this, amazing legend to a new generation of readers, and hopefully get people excited about Buck Rogers. And George Lucas has said that Star Wars was directly influenced by the Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon serials. Ray Bradbury loved Buck Rogers so much that when he was made fun of by his friends for reading it and he stopped temporarily, and actually he said it left a hole in his heart until he started reading Buck Rogers again. Philip K. Dick was influenced by it. So much of the sci-fi that we know today owes its origins to Buck Rogers, and so we wanted to try and do the original story justice and again bring it back for people. And we got an amazing collection of artists to do variant covers for this, because again, so many people love this story and love this hero that people were just kind of falling all over themselves to make a cover, and which we really appreciated.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, it's fun anytime you can play in the sandbox of stuff that's inspired you and inspired many others. I think that's one of the coolest things about public domain stuff. So I'm excited that you're jumping in there with it, with the latest from Green Archer Comics. Well, I appreciate you gentlemen being here, hanging out with me. Your friendship and support over the years has been wonderful, and it's just so good to spend some time talking comics, talking Kickstarter, past, present, future. And I'm glad y'all are still out there in the trenches, launching projects and building your audiences. So I appreciate you spending a little time with me to talk about that.
Pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've loved it. And thank you for doing this, Tyler, and for everything that you do.
Yeah, man. That's true.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks everyone else for tuning in. I hope you got some value from this discussion with Sam. Thanks to Sam for being here. And just, you know what I'm going to say. We can't wait to see what y'all launch next. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
The ComixLaunch Planner is going to give you a roadmap so you can launch confidently, whether this is your first campaign or you've launched a bunch. Hey, I'm George O'Connor. I've kickstarted 10 projects raising over $50,000, and ComixLaunch is a big reason for my success. Tyler has studied Kickstarter for over a decade, and he's going to help you avoid pitfalls and give you the best insights to make sure that you and your project shine on the platform. He's also going to help you with the mental aspects so you can stay sharp and positive and professional throughout the entire launch. This planner is going to give you the tips and insights Tyler's created from over the years of studying the platform and helping hundreds of people launch their projects. As someone who's been with Tyler since the beginning of ComixLaunch and has absolutely benefited from his insights and trainings, I cannot recommend the ComixLaunch planner enough.
I've been using the tools from ComixLaunch since 2020 to run all these successful Kickstarter campaigns. When it comes to running a Kickstarter, I never thought I could do it until I started using Tyler's tools and tips and tricks. He really has this great way of putting everything together and making it so easy to tackle. So something big and challenging like a Kickstarter campaign becomes really easy to do when it's broken down into these steps. My name is Melissa J. Massey, purveyor of fine fantasy comics and tragic shenanigans. I would recommend this to anyone who wants to launch a book or a comic on Kickstarter. It really breaks down the process and helps you to position yourself well so that you can stand out and deliver a fantastic book to your audience. I mean, the results don't lie, and the pile's getting a little hard to hold, so check out the ComixLaunch Planner. It's going to be the best investment you make for yourself and for your creative business.
Before ComixLaunch, I struggled to raise $3,000 on my first campaign. And since joining ComixLaunch, I have raised more than $370,000 across more than 30 campaigns. That's a huge difference. It's quantifiable. Hey everybody, it's Clay Adams. I'm the writer of Blazing Blade of Frankenstein, Dream Quest, co-writer of Carmilla Unbound, Prodigal Son, and co-editor of the Nightmare Theater horror anthology. I wish I had this planner years ago. Tyler, what are you doing? Get on this. Start shipping these things out. Can we just skip the campaign? Let's go.